I noticed lately it's been this. I don't know. It's like there's been this urge for some people to just shit on Michael Jordan in order to prop up Hakeem Olajuwon. When really you should just, if you're a fan of Hakeem Olajuwon, you should just prop up Hakeem Olajuwon. I mean, his efforts, his achievements should stand on their own. But no, you got to shit on Michael Jordan, calling him a loser who couldn't win the playoffs and only won when the Pistons got old or the Celtics got old or what have you. You know, talking about, different things. Well, okay, since people want to play that game, I can play that game too. All right? Even before Hakeem Olajuwon came into the NBA, he was known as a loser. All right? If I slam a jammer with him and Clyde Drexler, probably the greatest collegiate teammates of all time, and they were going to run through the tournament, win the title, and what happened? They lose 54-52 to North Carolina State. North Carolina State. Hakeem Olajuwon is drafted, and it make a big deal about the fact that, he's drafted first, Jordan was drafted third, Jordan jockers have a problem with that. No, because number one, even back as recently as the 1980s, the center position was the preeminent position in the NBA. Everybody knew back then that you built your team around centers. Going all the way back to the glory days of George Mikan and going to Bill Russell and Wilt, Bill Walton and Dave Cowens and Kareem, if I haven't mentioned him, and all the great centers. You built your team around centers. So it makes sense for Houston to pick Hakeem Olajuwon, not Michael Jordan, who at the time was projected to be more of a Jerry Stackhouse type player. Nobody knew that Michael Jordan was going to become the player that he became. What it really is, my friends, is that Michael Jordan ended up stealing Hakeem Olajuwon's shine in that draft. Because Olajuwon was the most touted player in that draft, not Michael Jordan. At least the people who only knew or watched both players on the surface. Olajuwon was supposed to be the prize of the draft. And the reason why Portland didn't choose Michael and instead chose Sam Bowie is because the year before that they already picked the guard, Clyde Drexler. Now, people say things like, well, it was Hakeem Olajuwon that single-handedly brought that team, the 86 Rocket teams, to the finals, which they ultimately fucking just still lost to the Boston Celtics, of course. But was it not Ralph Sampson's shot that thwarted the Lakers? I mean, I do remember a guy named Ralph Sampson. Sure, Ralph Sampson physically broke down. Sure, Ralph Sampson didn't perform well at times, but I think Ralph Sampson was a significant part of why that team went to the NBA Finals, even though he may not have shown up in the finals. And granted, Hakeem Olajuwon had a monster performance in the finals. I give him that. But don't act like Hakeem Olajuwon didn't have any help. That's one of the biggest things that perplexes me about Hakeem Olajuwon fanboys. Oh, well, he did everything by himself. He didn't have any teammates. Oh, really? He didn't. Okay, let me tell you something. I look at the 1995 finals, right? 1995 finals. Clyde Drexler, 21.5 points, 9.5 rebounds, 6.8 assists, 1 steal. Man, Pippen would love to have numbers like that. And this was Clyde Drexler, a player who historically I have ahead of Scottie Pippen. But Olajuwon didn't play with anybody. Robert Horry had the series of his fucking lifetime. 17.8 points, 10 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 3 steals per game, 2.3 blocks per game. Robert Horry. Mario Elie, 16.3 points, 4.3 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 2 steals per game. Sam Cassell, 14.3 points, 3 assists, 1.8 steals. That's 4 of his teammates in double figures. Well into double figure scoring. Michael Jordan never had anything like that before. But Hakeem Olajuwon always played by himself. He never had any help. It was just Hakeem Olajuwon. These numbers don't show that. 1994. Really, to be honest with you, it was more that Hakeem Olajuwon played a team that beat itself. The Knicks lost that finals more than Houston won. Despite the fact that Patrick Ewing only shot 36% from the fucking field. And yes, some of it had to do with Hakeem Olajuwon's defense, but I watched that series. Patrick Ewing missed a lot of open shots. He choked. He just missed a lot of shots that he normally would make. John Starks happened to have the worst game of his fucking life at the wrong possible fucking moment. Game 7. And they still, despite the fact that John Starks went 0 for 11 from downtown, 2 for 18 overall, the worst shooting game of his career, despite that, and despite the fact that Patrick Ewing routinely had games shooting 8 of 29 from the field, 11 of 31 from the field, 6 of 27 from the field, despite the fact that he stunk it up like that, night after night after night, he only had one good game in that 7-game series. They still went 7 and only lost by 6 points. And it had to come down to a clutch Vernon Maxwell three-pointer. Vernon Maxwell, another guy who Hakeem Olajuwon never had any teammates, supposedly. You know, a guy who scored 51 points in the game, Vernon Maxwell, 30 points in a quarter. But Hakeem Olajuwon played with nobody. Oh, he did everything by himself. Because he is the greatest player of all time. Otis Thorpe, his teammate in 1994, 17,600 career points. Otis Thorpe. 4,604 more points than Horace Grant ever scored, and a whopping 10,917 more points than Dennis Rodman could ever dream of. But Hakeem Olajuwon, him playing by himself, had no help. But he the greatest player since sliced bread. Hakeem Olajuwon, top MVP voting throughout his career, right? He won the 1994 MVP award. But in his 18-year career, only 4 times did Hakeem Olajuwon finish in the top 5 in MVP voting. Only 4 times. And 3 other seasons, he was not even in the top 10 in MVP voting. I'm talking about in his prime now. Nine times in his career, Hakeem Olajuwon had first round playoff exits. 9 times. One time in his prime, he didn't even make the playoffs. Seattle Supersonics were his kryptonite. They never could fucking beat him, really. And I said it before and I'll say it again. They got lucky in 1994 that Denver beat Seattle. Because I'm telling you right now, that 63-win Sonic team would have beat that ass. So you want to talk about the Bulls got lucky because they never faced Houston in the finals? Well, one of those goddamn rings, really both of them, y'all motherfuckers lucked up y'all didn't have to play Seattle because they would have beat that ass again like they always fucking did. They used to beat y'all ass the regular seasons like y'all fucking like they was y'all fucking daddy. Hakeem Olajuwon, this guy who never played anybody and was this guy who put his team on his back. You would think he would lead the NBA in win shares, right? Never. Never led the NBA in win shares. Never. Michael Jordan led the NBA in win shares 9 times. 9 times. And why is it Hakeem Olajuwon, this unstoppable offensive force, never averaged 30 points per game in the season. Never. Even Karl Malone averaged 30 points per game one year. 1989, 1990 averaged 31 points per game. Even other players have come close to scoring 30 points per game this season. In 94, Shaq averaged 29.3. In 95, Shaq led the NBA averaging 29.3. In 2000, Shaq averaged 29.7 points per game, winning the scoring title. David Robinson in 94 won the scoring title, averaging 29.8 points per game. Hell, even Patrick Ewing had a season averaging 28.6 per game. Charles Barkley averaged 28.6 per game. Olajuwon never averaged more than 27 points per game. Never. And even Kenny Smith said this. True, Hakeem Olajuwon faced the likes of David Robinson and Shaq and Ewing and got the best of them a lot of times. But more often than not, Olajuwon faced a lot of bums at the center position. A lot of bums. Didn't have to exert himself on defense too often. There were some bum centers now. Now, don't get me wrong, the center position was better in the 1980s and 1990s, but it was starting to fall off even then in the 1990s. Michael Jordan had to exert himself on offense and defense. He did play against guys who could score. It wasn't like he was taking nights off. Now, granted, in the latter Bulls team, it was Pippen and Harper that got the defensive assignments, the tougher defensive assignments, as Jordan didn't have the same energy. He had to rest himself on offense. But when Jordan was in his prime, he guarded the best players on the perimeter. He and Scottie. Night in and night out. While he was still putting up 30, 35, 33 points per game. Olajuwon had nights, even Kenny Smith has said this. So it's undisputable. Kenny Smith said Olajuwon had nights off. He even bragged about it. I could just put up my 27 and just rest. I want to do this shit, but I can keep doing it because there's other shit I can bring up. Y'all want to keep shitting on Michael Jordan? I'm gonna keep shitting on Hakeem Olajuwon.